It's late, the lights are off, you're lying in bed, and instead of drifting off to sleep, you're the lead character in a scene that is never actually going to happen. Maybe you're giving a speech that leaves an entire room speechless. Maybe you're finally saying the thing you should have said 3 years ago, to someone who somehow still charges you rent inside your own head. Maybe you've just discovered some hidden talent that changes everything, and every single person who ever doubted you is standing there, watching. And you don't just play the scene once, you run it. Then you rerun it. You tweak a line of dialogue. Someone responds slightly differently, so you rewind and redo the whole thing, better this time, sharper. And then, somewhere in the middle of the perfect version, you finally fall asleep. If that's you, here's the first thing you should know. There are so many more of you than you think, and what's actually happening in that dark, quiet window goes so much deeper than just daydreaming. So tonight, let's decode it. Researchers have a name for the sprawling inner worlds some people build. They sometimes call it a paracosm, an elaborate, detailed, self-directed mental world that runs quietly alongside your real one. And when psychologists look at the scenarios people tend to run right before sleep, they notice they usually fall into 2 emotional buckets. The first is unfinished business, something socially awkward or painful that got left unresolved. The second is the one worth slowing down on. It's the scene where you finally get what you felt you deserved: respect, recognition, closure, the apology that never came, the moment where you were finally understood. And when you replay a conversation where you finally say exactly the right thing, you're not just being self-indulgent, your brain is doing something it is genuinely built to do. To understand why, we need to talk about a very specific window of time, that drowsy, in-between state, right before you fall asleep. Researchers call it Hypnagogia. And it's special because it might be the only point in your entire day when the rational, logical part of your brain starts powering down before your emotional side does. Think about what that means. All day long, your logical mind has been keeping things in check. Don't say that. Let it go. It's not worth the energy. But in that hypnagogic window, the manager clocks out early, and the emotions are still wide awake. So everything you push down all day starts quietly rising back up. The argument you dropped, the compliment that never landed, the version of yourself that was just a little braver, a little sharper, a little less afraid of taking up space. And here's the part that's genuinely fascinating, and that almost no one frames this way. These scenarios are never random. They're specific, detailed. They follow a kind of emotional logic, a sense of narrative justice, where things finally land the way they should have. That's not an accident. It comes down to how your brain handles identity. Because at the most fundamental level, humans are story-making creatures. You don't just experience an event, you automatically wrap a story around it, complete with a main character, obstacles, and some kind of resolution. The problem is, real life rarely hands you that resolution. Conversations end awkwardly, things go unsaid, people misread you, and you let it slide because fighting it wasn't worth it. But your brain keeps the draft open. And the pre-sleep imagination is where those unfinished drafts finally get edited. And that editing isn't delusional, it's actually a form of identity maintenance. You're rehearsing who you want to be. You're reclaiming the moments where the real you didn't quite make it into the room. There's research that backs this up. Jerome Singer, a psychologist at Yale, spent decades studying daydreaming and mental imagery. And he found that people who engage in what he called positive constructive daydreaming, the kind with a real internal storyline and emotional resolution, tend to score higher on measures of emotional regulation and creative problem solving. Sit with that for a second. Your nighttime head movies aren't a sign that you can't handle reality. In a lot of cases, they're evidence that you have an unusually rich and sophisticated relationship with your own inner life. That might be the first time being the main character in your own elaborate bedtime production has been described as emotionally sophisticated. But honestly, here we are. Now, let's be honest about the other side of this, because not every pre-sleep scenario is a triumph. Some of them, you lose. Some are rehearsals for the worst case. The breakup you're dreading, the confrontation you know is coming, the moment where it all goes wrong, and you're desperately trying to prepare for it. And some of them are just quietly sad, tender little scenes of connection you're not sure you'll ever actually get, a conversation with someone you've lost, a version of a relationship that didn't work out, except in this one, it does. Those scenes carry a completely different weight, and they deserve to be taken seriously, not brushed off. Because when your imagination drifts toward grief or longing right before sleep, that's not you being broken. That's your nervous system doing something it genuinely needs to do. Sleep researchers have found that a lot of our emotional memory gets processed and filed during REM sleep, and that hypnagogic window right before it seems to act like a preparation phase, your mind gently surfacing the things it needs to work through. So the scene that feels like proof you're stuck, sometimes it's actually the quiet machinery by which you eventually get unstuck. There's a deeper social layer here too, one almost nobody talks about. The people who do this most intensely, the ones with these sprawling, detailed inner worlds, are very often people who grew up in an environment where their emotional reality wasn't fully acknowledged, where what they felt on the inside didn't match what they were allowed to show on the outside. When that's your childhood, the inner world becomes the place where the gap gets filled. You couldn't say what you really felt at the dinner table, but you could say it in your head, in the car, in the dark, right before you fell asleep. And over the years, that interior space became incredibly developed. For a lot of people, the imagination wasn't an escape from their life. It was a continuation of it, running quietly underground. And look, there's something almost funny about how cinematic these scenes get. Full production value. There's a version of events where you walk into a room and something just shifts, and everyone can feel it. Or you casually drop one piece of information that recontextualizes everything, and the person who underestimated you just has to sit there with it. You've cast yourself, directed yourself, written yourself lines your actual mouth would never in a million years deliver with that kind of timing. And honestly, the character you've written is kind of incredible. Which brings us to the question sitting underneath all of this, the one most people feel but never quite let themselves ask. Why can't the real version be a little more like that one? And the answer isn't exactly flattering to modern life. Most of us spend our days so busy managing how we come across, so trained to edit ourselves in real time, that the unfiltered, fully expressed version of who we are only shows up when no one is watching. When the lights are off, when the day is finally done, and there's no performance left to keep up. That person in your head, the one giving the speech, having the conversation, finally being understood, that person isn't fictional. That's just you, without all the interference. So what do you actually do with that? Some people, once they realize how vivid and emotionally honest their inner world is, start getting curious about the gap between it and their outer one, and slowly, imperfectly, not all at once, they start experimenting with closing it. Saying the thing, taking up the space, letting the version of themselves that only existed in the pre-sleep dark step out into actual daylight, even in tiny doses. And yes, it's uncomfortable. It goes wrong sometimes. The real version is messier, less edited, more awkward than the one in your head, but it's real. And real things compound and grow in a way that imagined things, by definition, never can. So here's what I really want to leave you with. The scenarios you run every night are not something to be embarrassed about. They're a map. They show you, with remarkable clarity, what you actually want, not what you've settled for, not what you've talked yourself into calling realistic, not what you perform for everyone else, what you genuinely want, and who you quietly wish you were allowed to be. And the only question worth asking, once you've watched that map play out enough nights in a row, is whether you're ever going to try to live inside it. So tonight, when the lights go off and the scene starts up again, don't rush past it. Notice what it's about. Really notice. Because the want underneath it is trying to tell you something. It has been for a while. If this one felt a little too accurate, stay with us here at Deep Ravines Psychology Lab, where we keep decoding the quiet patterns that shape how you think, feel, and connect. Next time, we're exploring why saying the honest thing out loud feels so terrifying in the moment, the psychology of the invisible audience we're all performing for, and how to finally stop editing yourself in real time. Until then, take care of your mind.